The Crimean War, which took place from 1853 to 1856, was a monumental conflict that unfolded primarily on the Crimean Peninsula. The opposing forces were the Ottoman Empire, France, Britain, and Sardinia against the Russian Empire. This war is often remembered for its poor leadership, the suffering of the soldiers, and the birth of modern weaponry and tactics, which was a pivotal moment in European military and diplomatic strategy. It brought about substantial shifts in the balance of power and marked the decline of the Ottoman Empire. The Crimean War was rooted in the enduring Eastern question, a complex issue concerning the fate of the weakening Ottoman Empire and European power dynamics. As the once mighty Ottoman Empire faltered, European nations were eager to exploit its decline. Russia, in particular, sought to bolster its influence in the Balkans and control the vital Dardanelles and Bosporus Straits, which provided access to the Mediterranean Sea. Religious tensions also played a significant role in the years leading up to the war. The Holy Land, home to crucial Christian sites like Jerusalem and Bethlehem, was under Ottoman rule. Both the French and the Russians sought to assert their dominance over these sites, with the French aiming to protect Roman Catholics and the Russians, Orthodox Christians. In 1852, the Ottoman Sultan granted France the authority to oversee Christian holy places, further fueling the religious divide. Russia wanted to have more than just religious power in the area. Tsar Nicholas I tried to break up the Ottoman Empire and make Russia the most powerful country in the Balkans and the Black Sea. He believed that the Ottoman Empire was in decline and on the verge of disintegration. Nicholas wanted to make sure that Russia controlled the straits and could access warm water ports, which were necessary for trade and military power. Attempts to calm things down diplomatically failed. In 1853, Russia took over the Danubian principalities, now Romania, and was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. People in the Ottoman Empire saw this as a direct threat to their sovereignty, so in October 1853, they went to war with Russia. As more European powers got involved, the conflict quickly got worse. The initial phase: the Danube and the Black Sea. Several naval battles took place in the Black Sea at the start of the war. Led by Admiral Pavel Nakhimov, the Russian fleet won the Battle of Sinop in November 1853, a significant victory. The Russian fleet wiped out an Ottoman squadron, which angered people in Britain and France, who saw it as an attack on their interests in the area. In response, France and Britain went to war with Russia in March 1854. The Allied forces, which included British, French, and Ottoman troops, pushed Russian forces out of the Danube principalities. The Allies made some progress, and by the summer of 1854, Russian troops had left the area. The Crimean Campaign. The war then turned its attention to the Crimean Peninsula, where the Allies wanted to take Sevastopol, a Russian naval base. In September 1854, Allied forces landed at Kalamata Bay, marking the start of the Crimean Campaign. The Allies won several battles, such as the Battle of Alma, the Battle of Balaclava, and the Battle of Inkerman. However, they had a hard time because of bad logistics, sickness, and weather. The Siege of Sevastopol was the most crucial event in the Crimean War from September 1854 to September 1855. The Allies occupied the city and tried to break its defenses by firing artillery. The Russian defenders, who were first led by Admiral Vladimir Kornilov and then General Eduard Totleben, fought hard. There was much fighting during the siege, including the well-known charge of the Light Brigade in the Battle of Balaclava. Alfred, Lord Tennyson, wrote a poem about the charge, which was a terrible British cavalry attack that killed many people because of bad leadership and communication problems. The Allies tried to end the siege, which lasted almost a year. Both sides were hit hard by the harsh winter of 1854 to 1855. Thousands of soldiers died from sickness, lack of food, and exposure. Ultimately, the Allies won when the French took over the Malakoff Redoubt in September 1855, a key defensive position. The Russians had to leave Sevastopol after the Malakoff sank, which was a turning point in the war. Most of the fighting occurred on the Crimean Peninsula, but there was also fighting in other places. Along the Baltic Sea, the French and British navies attacked and blocked Russian ports several times, but these actions didn't change the course of the war. In the Caucasus, the Ottoman Empire and Russia fought many battles, such as the Siege of Kars. The Ottomans had some success at first, but in the end, the Russians won and took Kars in November 1855. For the first time in history, the Kingdom of Sardinia joined the war in January 1855. They wanted to convince Britain and France to support Italy's becoming one country, which is why Sardinia joined. Sardinian troops didn't do much in the Crimean campaign, but their presence helped build good relations with the Allies. The end of the war. In March 1855, Tsar Nicholas I passed away. His son, Alexander II, became King of Russia. Alexander was more likely to try to end the war through negotiations because Russia had more problems at home and with its finances. When Sevastopol fell in September 1855, it was a massive blow to the Russian military and morale. When the Russians lost their most important naval base, they had to change their minds. Austria, which had been neutral during the war, acted as a mediator, and peace talks began in early 1856. The Treaty of Paris. The Crimean War was officially over when the Treaty of Paris was signed on March 30, 1856. The treaty made Russia follow several rules. Demilitarization of the Black Sea. Russia wasn't allowed to keep a navy or fortifications in the Black Sea, which made it much harder for them to show power in the area. Independence of the Danubian principalities, Moldavia and Wallachia were given more freedom under Ottoman rule, eventually enabling them to join together to form Romania. Protection of Christian minorities. The Ottoman Empire agreed to protect the rights of its Christian citizens, but this was mostly a show and didn't mean anything in real life. Making the Black Sea Straits neutral. The Dardanelles and Bosporus Straits were neutral waters, meaning warships could not pass through them during peacetime. Military and technological innovations. Several new technologies were also created during the war, such as the regular use of rifled muskets. These improved the accuracy and range of infantry fire, which really changed how battles were fought. The first modern military logistics were based on railroads and telegraphs for communication and moving goods. The war also pushed the creation of ironclad warships, which would change how naval battles were fought for decades. Many soldiers were hurt during the Crimean War, mainly because they were sick and didn't get enough medical care. Military medicine was changed in significant ways. Florence Nightingale and her nurses at the British hospital in Scutari showed that soldiers needed better medical care and cleaner hospitals. Nightingale's work paved the way for modern nursing and medical care in the military. The Crimean War changed the balance of power and diplomacy in Europe dramatically. The war weakened Russia's position in Europe and showed its weak military and economic power. The war also signaled the beginning of the end for the Concert of Europe, the diplomatic cooperation system that had maintained peace since the Congress of Vienna in 1815. Britain and France became the most powerful countries in Europe after the war because of their strengthened positions. The two countries did ally, but it didn't last long. Tensions rise again between them in the years to come. The Crimean War did little to solve the Eastern question, and the Ottoman Empire continued to fall apart over the next few decades. The war showed the empire's flaws and paved the way for more fighting in the Balkans and, eventually, the fall of Ottoman rule in Europe. The war significantly affected movements for nationalism and unification in Europe. Sardinia's involvement in the war strengthened the case for Italy to become one country, which was eventually achieved in 1861. In the same way, the war affected the rise of nationalism in the Balkans, which caused several wars and the eventual independence of several Balkan states from Ottoman rule. Russia was long affected by the Crimean War, both at home and abroad. The war showed how ineffective and dishonest the Russian military and government were, leading to calls for change. Tsar Alexander II took power during the war and started a series of reforms to modernize Russia and prevent it from losing again. In 1861, he freed the serfs as one of these reforms. On a global level, the war made Russia less influential in Europe and forced it to focus on growing and developing inside of Russia and in Asia. Russian naval power took a big hit when the Black Sea was made less militarized. However, Russia eventually rebuilt its fleet and became a significant maritime power again in the late 1800s. The Crimean War was a complex and multifaceted conflict that had far-reaching consequences for Europe and the world. It was a war marked by mismanagement, suffering, and technological innovation, and it played a crucial role in shaping the course of 19th century history. The war exposed the weaknesses of the Ottoman Empire, weakened Russia's position in Europe, and set the stage for the rise of new powers and the eventual redrawing of the European map. The legacy of the Crimean War is still felt today. It marked the beginning of modern warfare and the end of the old European order. The war's impact on military strategy, medical care, and international diplomacy continues to be studied and remembered as a pivotal moment in history.